world is ours. The Constitution says otherwise. I think they're both wrong. I think we defeat terrorism by showing them that we do not fear them. I think if we ban certain religions, if we censor the internet, I think that at that point the terrorists will have won. Regime change hasn't won. Coddling secular dictators.
And the reason I don't like it is because there's too much fighting, too much yelling.
Think about the effect that that's going to have on those children when they go back to school tomorrow, wondering, filled with anxiety about whether they're really going to be safe. Think about the mothers who will take those children tomorrow morning to the bus stop, wondering whether their children will arrive back on that bus safe and sound. Think about the fathers of Los Angeles, who tomorrow will head off to work and wonder about the safety of their wives and their children. What has Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton done for this country? That the most basic responsibility of an administration is to protect the safety and security of the American people. I will tell you this. I'm a former federal prosecutor. I've fought terrorists and won, and when we get back in the White House, we will fight terrorists and win again, and America will be safe.
Like all of you, I'm angry. I'm angry at what's happening to our nation. Citizens, it's time to take our country back. Bombast and insults won't take it back. Political rhetoric that promises a lot and delivers little won't take it back. All of our problems can be solved. All of our wounds can be healed by a tested leader who and onto this debate stage while all the political insiders and the pundits told me it couldn't be done. I've been told no all my life, and all my life I've refused to accept no as an answer. Citizens, it is time to take our country back from the political class, from the media, from the liberal elite. It can be done. It must be done. Join me, and we will get it done.
Governor, right now, as regarding national security, we need to restore the defense cuts of Barack Obama, to rebuild our military, to destroy ISIS before it destroys us. Regarding economic security, we need to take power and money away from Washington, D.C., and empower American families so that they can rise up again. Look, America still is an exceptional country. We love to lead, and we love to win. And we do it when we take on any challenge, and when we support our friends. As president, I will keep you and our country safe, secure, and free. Thank you.
It means that I was really blessed because I was a citizen of the greatest country in the history of all mankind. But there have always been people in American politics that wanted America to be more like the rest of the world. And in 2008, one of them was elected president of this country. And the result has been a disaster. Today, you have millions of Americans that feel left out and out of place in their own country, struggling to live paycheck to paycheck, called bigots because they hold on to traditional values. And around the world, America's influence is declining. While this president has destroyed our military, our allies no longer trust us, and our adversaries no longer respect us. And that is why this election is so important. That is why I'm running for president. And that's why I'm going to ask you for your vote tonight. If you elect me president, we will have a president that believes America is the greatest country in the world, and we will have a president that acts like
it. Who is unwilling to utter its name. The men and women on this stage, every one of us, is better prepared to keep this nation safe than he is Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. We need a president who understands the first obligation of the commander-in-chief is to keep America safe. If I'm elected president, we will hunt down and kill the terrorists. We will utterly destroy ISIS. We will stop the terrorist attacks before they occur because we will not be prisoners to political correctness. Rather, we will speak the truth. Border security is national security, and we will not be admitting jihadists as refugees. We will keep America safe.
fighting now against radical Islamic jihadists is one that we must win. Our very existence is dependent upon that. You know, as a pediatric neurosurgeon, I frequently face life and death situations and had to come up with the right diagnosis, the right plan, and execute that plan frequently with other colleagues. Right now, the United States of America is the patient, and the patient is in critical condition and will not be cured by political correctness and will not be cured by timidity. And I am asking the Congress, which represents the people, to declare war on ISIS so that we can begin the process of excising that cancer and begin the healing process and bring peace, prosperity, and safety back to America.
Making sure that China, Japan, Mexico, both at the border and in trade, no longer takes advantage of our country. Certainly would never have made that horrible, disgusting, absolutely incompetent deal with Iran, where they get $150 billion, they're a terrorist nation. But I began it talking about other things, and those things are things I'm very good at, and maybe that's why I'm center stage. People saw it, people liked it, people respected it. A month ago, things changed. Radical Islamic terrorism came into effect even more so than it has been in the past. People like what I say, people respect what I say, and we've opened up a very big discussion that needed to be opened up. Thank you very much.
Part of your strategy is to focus in on America's borders. To keep the country safe, you say you want to temporarily ban non-American Muslims from coming to the United States.
We're not talking about isolation. We're talking about security. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about security. Our country is out of control. People are pouring across the southern border. I will build a wall. It'll be a great wall. People will not come in unless they come in legally. Drugs will not pour through that wall. As far as other people, like in the migration, where they're going, tens of thousands of people having cell phones with ISIS flags on them, I don't think so. Well, they're not coming to this country, and if I'm president, and if Obama has brought some to this country, they are leaving. They're going. They're gone.
We need to destroy ISIS in the caliphate. That should be our objective. The refugee issue will be solved if we destroy ISIS there, which means we need to have a no-fly zone, safe zones there for refugees, and to build a military force. We need to embed our forces, our troops, inside the Iraqi military. We need to arm directly the Kurds. And all of that has to be done in concert with the Arab nations. And if we're going to ban all Muslims, how are we going to get them to be part of a coalition to destroy ISIS? The Kurds are the greatest fighting force and our strongest allies. They're Muslim. Look, this is not a serious proposal. In fact, it will push the Muslim world, the Arab world, away from us at a time when we need to re-engage with them to be able to create a strategy to destroy ISIS. So Donald, is great at the one-liners, but he's a chaos candidate. And he'd be a chaos president. He would not be the commander-in-chief we need to keep our country safe. Mr. Trump.
I believe I'm unhinged. He said that very simply because he has failed in his campaign. It's been a total disaster. Nobody cares. And frankly, I'm the most solid person up here. I built a tremendous company, and all I want to do is make America great again. I don't want our country to be taken away from us, and that's what's happening. The policies that we've suffered under other presidents have been a disaster for our country. We want to make America great again, and Jeff, in all fairness, he doesn't believe that.
Look, he mentioned me. I can talk. This is the problem. Banning all Muslims will make it harder for us to do exactly what we need to do, which is to destroy ISIS. We need a strategy. We need to get the lawyers off the back of the war fighters. Right now, under President Obama, we've created the standard that is so high that it's impossible to be successful in fighting ISIS. We need to engage with the Arab world to make this happen. It is not a serious proposal to say that to the people that you're asking for their support, that they can't even come to the country to even engage in a dialogue with us, that's not a serious proposal. We need a serious leader to deal with this. I believe I'm that guy.
Senator Rubio, I'm going to Senator Rubio, executive thought. So you have said banning
Mr. President hasn't kept us safe. The problem is we had an attack in San Bernardino, and we were paying attention to the most important issue we have faced in this country in a decade, since 9/11, and then all the talk was about this proposal, which isn't going to happen. But this is what's important to do. We must deal frontally with this threat of radical Islamists, especially from ISIS. This is the most sophisticated terror group that has ever threatened the world or the United States of America. They are actively recruiting Americans. The attacker in San Bernardino was an American citizen, born and raised in this country. He was a health inspector, had a newborn child, left all that behind to kill 14 people. We also understand that this is a group that's growing in its governance of territory. It's not just Iraq and Syria. They are now a predominant group in Libya. They are beginning to pop up in Afghanistan. They are increasingly involved now in attacks in Yemen. They have Jordan in their sights. This group needs to be confronted with serious proposals. And this is a very significant threat we face, and the President has left us unsafe. He spoke the other night to the American people to reassure us, I wish he hadn't spoken at all. He made things worse. Because what he basically said was we're doing what we're doing now, and what we are doing now is not working.
Well, listen, everyone understands why Donald has suggested what he has. We're looking at a president who's engaged in this doublespeak, where he doesn't call radical Islamic terrorism by its name. Indeed, he gives a speech after the San Bernardino attack, where his approach is to try to go after the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens rather than to keep us safe. And even worse, President Obama and Hillary Clinton are proposing bringing tens of thousands of Syrian refugees to this country when the head of the FBI has told Congress they cannot vet those refugees. I understand why Donald made that proposal. I introduced legislation in the Senate that I believe is more narrowly focused at the actual threat, which is radical Islamic terrorism. And what my legislation would do is suspend all refugees for 3 years from countries where ISIS or Al-Qaeda control substantial territory.
So you're saying this because he's too broad and you have a narrow focus? Why do you disagree with him?
Well, I'm reminded of what FDR's grandfather said. He said, all horse thieves are Democrats, but not all Democrats are horse thieves. In this instance, there are millions of peaceful Muslims across the world in countries like India where there is not the problems we are seeing in nations that are controlled, have territory controlled by Al-Qaeda or ISIS, and we should direct at the problem, focus on the problem, and defeat radical Islamic terrorism. It's not a war on faith, it's a war on a political and theocratic ideology that seeks to murder us.
Charlie Fiorina.
Stand for our solutions. I offer myself as a leader to the people of this country because I think they're looking for solutions, not lawyers arguing over laws or entertainers throwing out sound bites that draw media attention. We need to solve the problem. To solve the problem, we need to do something here at home and something over there in their caliphate. We need to deny them territory. But here at home, we need to do two fundamental things. Number one, we need to recognize that technology has moved on. The Patriot Act was signed in 2001, roughly. The iPhone was invented in 2007. The iPad was invented in 2011. Snapchat and Twitter, all the rest of it, have been around just for several years. Technology has moved on and terrorists have moved on with it. Let me tell you a story. Soon after 9/11, I got a phone call from the NSA. They needed help. I gave them help. I stopped a truckload of equipment. I had it turned around. It was escorted by the NSA into headquarters. We need the private sector's help because government is not innovating. Technology is running ahead by leaps and bounds. The private sector will help, just as I helped after 9/11. But they must be engaged and they must be asked. I will ask them. I know them.
Governor, normal under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. The fact is that if you listen to Hillary Clinton the other day, what she said to the American people was, as regards to ISIS, my strategy would be just about the same as the president's. Just about the same as the president's? We have people across this country who are scared to death. Because I can tell you this, as a former federal prosecutor, if a center for the developmentally disabled in San Bernardino, California, is now a target for terrorists. That means everywhere in America is a target for these terrorists. Now, I spent 7 years of my life in the immediate aftermath of September 11th doing this work, working with the Patriot Act, working with our law enforcement, working with the surveillance community to make sure that we keep America safe. What we need to do, is restore those tools that have been taken away by the President and others. Restore those tools to the NSA and to our entire surveillance and law enforcement community. We need a president who's going to understand what actionable intelligence looks like and act on it. And we need a president and a cabinet who understands that the first and most important priority of the President of the United States is to protect the safety and security of Americans. As someone who has done it, I will make sure it gets done again. Thank you.
Governor, one of the killers of San Bernardino was an American who was not on anyone's watch list. How are you going to find that radicalized person and stop another such attack?
Well, first of all, I said last February that we needed to have people on the ground, troops on the ground, in a coalition similar to what we had in the first Gulf War. I remember when the Egyptian ambassador to the United States stood in the Rose Garden and pledged Arab commitment to removing Saddam Hussein from Kuwait. Before we came out here tonight, I am told the Saudis have organized 34 countries who want to join in the battle against terrorism. First and foremost, we need to go and destroy ISIS. And we need to do this with our Arab friends and our friends in Europe. And when I see they have a climate conference over in Paris, they should have been talking about destroying ISIS because they are involved in virtually every country across the world. Now, you destroy ISIS in a coalition, you get joint intelligence with our European friends, and then here at home, there are things called the Joint Terrorism Task Force, headed by the FBI, and made up of local law enforcement, including state police. They need the tools, and the tools involve encryption, where we cannot hear what they're even planning. And when we see red flags, a father, a mother, a neighbor who says, we got a problem here, then we have to give law enforcement the ability to listen so they can disrupt these terrorist attacks before they occur. We can do this, but we got to get moving. Pay me now or pay me a lot more later.
Your question is not accurate. I'm very proud to have joined with conservatives in both the Senate and the House to reform how we target bad guys. And what the USA Freedom Act did is it did two things. Number one, it ended the federal government's bulk collection of phone metadata of millions of law-abiding citizens. But number two, and the second half of it that is critical, it strengthened the tools of national security and law enforcement to go after terrorists. It gave us greater tools, and we are seeing those tools work right now in San Bernardino. And in particular, what it did is the prior program only covered a relatively narrow slice of phone calls. When you had a terrorist, you could only search a relatively narrow slice of numbers, primarily landlines. The USA Freedom Act expands that, so now we have cell phones, now we have internet phones, now we have the phones that terrorists are likely to use, and the focus of law enforcement is on targeting the bad guys. You know, what the Obama administration keeps getting wrong is whenever anything bad happens, they focus on law-abiding citizens instead of focusing on the bad guys. We need to focus on radical Islamic terrorists, and we need to stop them before they carry out acts of terror.
Thank you. Senator Rubio. Senator from Detroit.
Territory in the Middle East, as I outlined earlier, in multiple countries. This is not just the most capable, it is the most sophisticated terror threat we have ever faced. We are now at a time where we need more tools, not less tools. And that tool we lost, the metadata program, was a valuable tool that we no longer have at our disposal.
Senator Cruz.
Well, I would know that Marco knows what he's saying is true. You know, Mark Levin wrote a column last week that says that the attack ad the super PAC is running, they're saying the same thing, that they are knowingly false, and they are in fact a Linsky-like attack like Barack Obama. And the reason is simple. What he knows is that the old program covered 20 to 30% of phone numbers to search for terrorists. The new program covers nearly 100%. That gives us greater ability to stop acts of terrorism, and he knows that's the case.
James,
Senator,
let me be very careful answering this, because I don't think national television in front of 15 million people is the place to discuss classified information. So let me just be very clear. There is nothing that we are allowed to do under this bill that we could not do before. This bill did, however, take away a valuable tool that allows us, the National Security Agency, and other intelligence agencies, to quickly and rapidly access phone records and match them up with other phone records to see who terrorists have been calling. Because I promise you, the next time there is an attack on this country, the first thing people are going to want to know is, why did we know about it and why didn't we stop it? And the answer better not be because we didn't have access to records or information that would have allowed us to identify these killers before the attack.
We are not any safer with the bulk collection of all Americans' records. In fact, I think we're less safe. We get so distracted by all of the information, we're not spending enough time getting specific information on terrorists. The other thing is the one thing that might have stopped San Bernardino, that might have stopped 9/11, would have been stricter controls on those who came here. And Marco has opposed at every point increased security, border security for those who come to our country. On his Gang of Eight bill, he would have liberalized immigration, but he did not, and he steadfastly opposed any new border security requirements for refugees or students. Last week, I introduced another bill saying we need border security, we need border scrutiny. Once again, Marco opposed this. So Marco can't have it both ways. He thinks he wants to be this, oh, I'm great and strong on national defense, but he's the weakest of all the candidates on immigration. He is the one for an open border that is leaving us defenseless. If we want to defend the country, we have to defend against those who are coming in. And Marco has more of an allegiance to Chuck Schumer and to the liberals than he does to conservative politics.
Because number one, what he's pointing to is a bill last week that, remember, he voted for that only 10 people voted for. You know why? Because it's not focused on terrorism. It would have banned anyone from coming here. Someone from Taiwan would not have been able to come here as a tourist. Number two, this program, this metadata program, is actually more strict than what a regular law enforcement agency has now. If a regular law enforcement agency wants your phone records, all they have to do is issue a subpoena. But now the intelligence agency is not able to quickly gather records and look at them to see who these terrorists are calling. And the terrorist that attacked us in San Bernardino was an American citizen, born and raised in this country. And I bet you we wish we would have had access to 5 years of his records so we could see who he was working with.
Marco still misunderstands the immigration issue. What I put forward was an amendment that would have temporarily halted immigration from high-risk terrorist countries, but it would have started it up, and I want them to go through global entry, which is a program where we do background checks. The thing is that every terrorist attack we've had since 9/11 has been legal immigration. Marco wants to expand that. I want more rules, more scrutiny, and to defend the country, you have to defend the border.
Senator, we're going to talk about immigration as well. You heard, Senator.
Your eyes are glazing over like mine. This is what it's like to be on the floor of the United States Senate. I mean, endless debates about how many angels on the head of a pin for people who never had to make a consequential decision in the executive position. The fact is, for 7 years, I had to make these decisions after 9/11. Make a decision about how to proceed forward with an investigation or how to pull back, whether to use certain actionable intelligence or whether not to. And yet they continue to debate about this bill in the subcommittee and what nobody in America cares about that. What they care about is, are we going to have a president who actually knows what they're doing to make these decisions? And for the 7 years afterwards, New Jersey was threatened like no other region in this country. And what we did was we took actions within the Constitution to make sure that law enforcement had all the information they needed. We prosecuted 2 of the biggest terrorism cases in the world and stopped Fort Dix from being attacked by 6 Americans, radicalized Muslims from a mosque in New Jersey, because we worked with the Muslim American community to get intelligence, and we used the Patriot Act to get other intelligence to make sure we did those cases. This is the difference between actually having been a federal prosecutor, actually doing something, and just spending your life as one of 100 debating it. Let's talk about how we do this, not about which bill these guys like more. But people don't care about that.
Thank you. Dr. Parker, you're in favor of monitoring mosques and schools where there's anti-American sentiment. What do you consider anti-American?
It's the first time I've spoken, and several people have had multiple questions, so please try to pay attention to that. Now, as far as monitoring is concerned, what my point is, we need to make sure that any place I don't care whether it's a mosque, a school, a supermarket, a theater, it doesn't matter. If there are a lot of people getting there, engaging in radicalizing activities, then we need to be suspicious of it. We have to get rid of all this PC stuff. And people are worried about somebody's going to say that I'm Islamophobic or what have you. This is craziness because we are at war. That's why I asked Congress, go ahead and declare the war. We need to be on a war footing. We need to understand that our nation is in great danger. What the Muslim Brotherhood said in the explanatory memorandum that was discovered during the Holy Land Foundation trial is that they will take advantage of our PC attitude to get us. And we have to be better than this. We have to be smarter than they are.
Dr. Carson, who was right in that little debate we just heard between Senator Rubio and Senator Paul?
I think you have to ask them about that. I don't want to get in between them. Let them fight.
If we want to destroy ISIS, if we want to destroy radical Islamic terrorism, we can't disassociate ourselves from peace-loving Muslims. If we expect to do this on our own, we will fail. But if we do it in unison with people who also are at risk and threatened by Islamic radical terrorism, we'll be far more successful. Look, the FBI has the tools necessary to monitor un-American activities in our country. It goes on. We shouldn't be talking about it, to be honest with you, out in the public. Of course they have those capabilities. We should make sure that we give the FBI, the NSA, our intelligence community, all the resources they need to keep us safe. But the main thing we should be focused on is the strategy to destroy ISIS. And I laid out a plan at the Reagan Library before the tragedy of Paris and before San Bernardino to do just that. It requires leadership. It's not filing an amendment and calling it a success. It is developing a strategy, leading the world, funding it, make sure that we have a military that's second to none, and doing the job, and making sure that we destroy ISIS there. That's how you keep America safe.
Ms. Fiorina, as you pointed out, you want
to focus on, but we'll never get there if we're divided. We'll never get there if Republicans and Democrats just fight with one another. Frankly, we are Republicans and they are Democrats, but before all of that, we're Americans. And I believe we need to unify in so many ways to rebuild our country, to strengthen our country, to rebuild our defense, and for America to secure its place in the world for us, for our children, and for the next generation. Thank you.
Governor Christie.
Thank you, Walter. America is in disgrace.
Listening to this conversation, let me just say, we have a lot of argument about laws, but none of it solves the problem. Let's examine what happened. Why did we miss the Tsarnaev brothers? Why did we miss the San Bernardino couple? It wasn't because we had stopped collecting metadata. It was because I think, as someone who comes from the technology world, we were using the wrong algorithms. This is a place where the private sector could be helpful because the government is woefully behind the technology curve. But secondly, the bureaucratic processes that have been in place since 9/11 are woefully inadequate as well. What do we now know? That DHS vets people by going into databases of known or suspected terrorists. And yet we also know that ISIS is recruiting people who are not in those databases. So of course we're going to miss them. And then we now learn that DHS says, no, we can't check their social media. For heaven's sake, every parent in America is checking social media, and every employer is as well, but our government can't do it. The bureaucratic procedures are so far behind, our government has become incompetent, unresponsive, corrupt, and that incompetence, ineptitude, lack of accountability is now dangerous. It is why we need a different kind of leadership in the White House to understand how to get bureaucracies competent again.
But my question was, should these Silicon Valley companies be forced to cooperate with the FBI?
They do not need to be forced. They need to be asked to bring the best and brightest, the most recent technology to the table. I was asked as a CEO. I complied happily, and they will as well, but they have not been asked. That's why it costs billions of dollars to build an Obama website that failed, because the private sector wasn't asked.
You recently suggested closing that internet off stop, those were your words, as a way to stop ISIS from recruiting online. Are you referring to closing down actual portions of the internet? Some say that would put the U.S. in line with China and North Korea.
Well, look, this is so easy to answer. ISIS is recruiting through the internet. ISIS is using the internet better than we are using the internet, and it was our idea. What I wanted to do is I wanted to get brilliant people from Silicon Valley and other places and figure out a way that ISIS cannot do what they're doing. You talk freedom of speech, you talk freedom of anything you want. I don't want them using our internet to take our young, impressionable youth and watching the media talking about how they're masterminds. These are masterminds. They shouldn't be using the word mastermind. These are thugs. These are terrible people in ISIS, not masterminds. And we have to change it from every standpoint. But we should be using our brilliant people, our most brilliant minds, to figure a way that ISIS cannot use the internet. And then on second, we should be able to penetrate the internet and find out exactly where ISIS is and everything about ISIS. And we can do that if we use our good people. Let me follow up more with somebody. I sure as hell don't want to let people that want to kill us and kill our nation use our internet. Yes, sir, I am.
Thank you. Another thing that is shutting down.
I want to go back to two other issues. One is the metadata. We know we have to hold this data for a longer period of time. And, in a lot of ways, Chris is right. Look, what the president has to do is take a position. We don't want to err on the side of having less. We want to err on the side of having more. That's good for our families. In addition to that, Wolf, there is a big problem. It's called encryption. And the people in San Bernardino were communicating with people who the FBI had been watching. But because their phone was encrypted, because the intelligence officials could not see who they were talking to, it was lost. We have to solve the encryption problem. It is not easy. A president of the United States, again, has to bring people together, have a position. We need to be able to penetrate these people when they are involved in these plots and these plans, and we have to give the local authorities the ability to penetrate and disrupt. That's what we need to do. Encryption is a major problem, and Congress has got to deal with this, and so does the president, to keep us safe.
Overwhelming air power that utterly and completely destroyed ISIS. To put things in perspective, the first Persian Gulf War, we launched roughly 1,100 air attacks a day. We carpet bombed them for 37 days, saturation bombing, after which our troops went in a day and a half, knocked up what was left of the Iraqi army. Right now, Obama is launching between 15 and 30 air attacks a day. It is photo op foreign policy. We need to use overwhelming air power. We need to be arming the Kurds. We need to be fighting and killing ISIS where they are. Let's go back to the earlier discussion a minute ago. It's not a lack of competence that is preventing the Obama administration from stopping these attacks. It is political correctness. We didn't monitor the Facebook posting of the female San Bernardino terrorist because the Obama DHS thought it would be inappropriate. She made a public call to jihad, and they didn't target it. The Zarnak brothers, the elder brother, made a public call to jihad, and the Obama administration didn't target it. Nidal Hassan communicated with Anwar al-Awlaki, a known radical cleric, asked about waging jihad against his fellow soldiers. The problem is, because of political correctness, the Obama administration, like a lot of folks here, wants to search everyone's cell phones and emails and not focus on the bad guys, and political correctness is killing people. To be clear, you would carpet bomb where ISIS is, not a city, but the location of the troops. You use air power directed. We have embedded special forces to direct the air power. But the object isn't to level a city. The object is to kill the ISIS terrorists, to make it, listen, ISIS is gaining strength because the perception is that they're winning, and President Obama fuels that perception. That will change when militants across the globe see that when you join ISIS, that you are giving up your life, you are signing your death warrant, and we need a president who is focused on defeating every single ISIS terrorist and protecting the homeland, which should be the first priority.
ISIS is a radical Sunni group. They cannot just be defeated through airstrikes. Airstrikes are a key component of defeating them. on the ground by a ground force. And that ground force must be primarily made up of Sunni Arabs themselves. Sunni Arabs that reject them ideologically and confront them militarily. We will have to embed additional American special operators alongside them to help them with training, to help them conduct special missions, and to help improve the airstrikes. The airstrikes are important, but we need to have an Air Force capable of it. And because of the budget cuts we are facing in this country, we are going to be left with the oldest and the smallest Air Force we have ever had. We have to reverse those cuts, in addition to the cuts to our Navy, and in addition to the cuts to our Army as well. And beyond that, I would say we must win the information war against ISIS. Every war we have ever been involved in has had a propaganda informational aspect to it. ISIS is winning the propaganda war. They are recruiting people, including Americans, to join them, with the promise that they are joining this great apocalyptic movement that is going to defeat the West. We have to show what life is really like in ISIS territory, and we have to show them why ISIS is not invincible by going out and conducting these attacks and publicizing them to those who they recruit.
Because I asked the question, Senator, because you said this. You said he, referring to Senator Cruz, voted against the Defense Authorization Act every year that it came up, and I assume that if he voted against it, he would veto it as president. That's the bill that funds.
That is true. That is accurate. 3 times he voted against the Defense Authorization Act, which is a bill that funds the troops. It also, by the way, funds the Iron Dome and other important programs. And I have to assume that if you vote against it in the Senate, you would also veto it as president. He has also supported, by the way, a budget that is called the containment budget. And it is a budget that would radically reduce the amount of money we spend on our military. You can't carpet bomb ISIS if you don't have planes and bombs to attack them with. And if we continue those cuts that we're doing now, not to mention additional cuts, we are going to be left with the oldest and the smallest Air Force this country has ever had. And that leaves us left. Senator Cruz.
Well, Marco has continued these attacks, and he knows they're not true. Yes, it is true that I voted against the National Defense Authorization Act because when I campaigned in Texas, I told voters in Texas that I would oppose the federal government having the authority to detain U.S. citizens permanently with no due process. I repeatedly supported an effort to take that out of that bill, and I honored that campaign commitment. But more broadly, the notion Marco is suggesting that somehow he also has taught more than a few insults in this direction. Let's be absolutely clear. ISIS and radical Islamic terrorism will face no more determined foe than I will be. We will utterly destroy them by targeting the bad guys. And one of the problems with Marco's foreign policy is he's far too often supported Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama undermining governments in the Middle East that have helped radical Islamic terrorists. We need to focus on killing the bad guys, not getting stuck in Middle Eastern civil wars that don't keep America safe.
Senator Rubio. Now, let me three-point the distinction. The first is, if you're an American citizen and you decide to join up with ISIS, we're not going to read you your Miranda rights. You're going to be treated as an enemy combatant, a member of an army attacking the country. Number 2. We do need our defense capabilities. It is a fact that the cuts we are facing today and the cuts that Senator Cruz would have supported would leave us with an even smaller Air Force and a smaller Navy than the one we are going to be left with. And the final point that I would make is Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's strategy is to lead from behind. It sounds like what he's outlining is not to lead at all. We cannot continue to outsource foreign policy. We must lead. We are the most powerful nation in the world. We need to begin to act like it again. We're going to have much more on this.
We have to be much tougher. We have to be much stronger than we've been. We have people that know what's going on. You take a look at just the attack in California the other day. There were numerous people, including the mother, that knew what was going on. They saw pipe bombs sitting all over the floor. They saw ammunition all over the place. They knew exactly what was going on. When you had the World Trade Center go, people were put into planes that were friends, family, girlfriends, and they were put into planes and they were sent back for the most part to Saudi Arabia. They knew what was going on. They went home and they wanted to watch their boyfriends on television. I would be very, very firm with families. And frankly, that will make people think. Because they may not care much about their lives, but they do care, believe it or not, about their families' lives.
Look, this is trouble. War. They declare war on us, and we need to have a serious strategy to destroy ISIS. But the idea that that is the solution to this is just crazy. It makes no sense to suggest this. Look, 2 months ago, Donald Trump said that ISIS was not our fight. Just 2 months ago. He said that Hillary Clinton would be a great negotiator with Iran.
The problem is, we need toughness. Honestly, I think Judge is a very nice person. He's a very nice person, but we need tough people. We need toughness. We need intelligence and we need tough. Jeff said when they come across the southern border, they come as an act of love.
You said on September 30th that ISIS was not a...
Am I talking or are you talking? You interrupted. September 30th. You apologize, Jeff. No.
Put on the gloves.
We need toughness, we need strength. We're not respected as a nation anymore. We don't have that level of respect that we need. And if we don't get it back fast, we're just going to go weaker, and just disintegrate. We can't allow that to happen. We need strength. We don't have it. When Jeff comes out and he talks about the border, and I saw it, and I was witness to it, and so was everyone else, and I was standing there, they come across an act of love. He's saying the same thing right now with radical Islam. And we can't have that in our country. It just won't work. We need strength.
Donald, you're not going to be able to consult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen. And I do have to say, leadership is not about attacking people and discouraging people. Leadership is about creating a serious strategy to deal with the threat of our time. And I laid out that strategy before the attacks in Paris and before the attacks in San Bernardino, and it is the way forward. We need to increase our military spending. We need to deal with the no-fly zone in Syria, a safe zone. We need to.
You're a pediatric neurologist surgeon and neurosurgeon. And people admire and respect and are inspired by your life.
And by the same token, you have to be able to look at the big picture and understand that it's actually merciful if you go ahead and finish the job rather than death by 1,000 clips.
So you are okay with the death of thousands of innocent children and civilians. It's like can you be as ruthless as Churchill was when prosecuting the war against the Nazis?
Ruthless is not necessarily the word I would use, but tough, resolute, understanding what the problems are, and understanding that the job of the President of the United States is to protect the people of this country and to do what is necessary in order to get it done.
Arming the allies of ISIS, the Islamic rebels against Assad, that we created a safe space, or made that space bigger for ISIS to grow. I think those who have wanted regime change have made a mistake. When we toppled Gaddafi in Libya, I think that was a mistake. I think ISIS grew stronger, we have a failed state, and we were more at risk. I'd like to also go back to, though, another question, which is Donald Trump a serious candidate? The reason I ask this is if you want to close the internet, realize, America, what that entails, bigger for ISIS to grow. I think those who have wanted regime change have made a mistake. When we toppled Gaddafi in Libya, I think that was a mistake. I think ISIS grew stronger, we have a failed state, and we were more at risk. I'd like to also So, they can kill us, but we can't kill them. That's what you say. And as far as the internet is concerned, I'm not talking about closing the internet. I'm talking about parts of Syria, parts of Iraq, where ISIS is spotting it. Now, you could close it. What I like even better than that is getting our smartest and getting our best to infiltrate their internet so that we know exactly where they're going, exactly where they're going to be. I like that better. But we have to... I just can't imagine somebody doing. These are people that want to kill us, folks. And you're objecting to us infiltrating their conversations? I don't think so. I don't think so.
You saying that
the regime change or mistake. In 2000, rate, there are still people, the majority on the stage, they want to topple Assad. And then there'll be chaos, and I think ISIS is going to be in charge.
Senator, we're going to talk about regime change in a bit, but Governor Kasich, would you like to respond to Senator Paul?
Yeah, let me just suggest to everybody, and I hear, last February, I said we needed to have people on the ground in a coalition with Europe and our allies. This is not going to get done just by working with the Sunnis, and it is not going to get done if we just embed a few people. We have to go massively like we did in the first Gulf War, where we destroyed Saddam's ability to take Kuwait. That will stand for nothing less than the total destruction of ISIS, and we have to be the leader. We can't wait for anybody else. I served on the Armed Services Committee for 18 years, and we must lead, or the job won't get done, unfortunately, for our country.
Thank you, Governor. Provide more than what they're doing now. There's no doubt about it. There's one major reason why they have not been willing to be a broader part of the coalition, and that is they have lost complete trust and confidence in this president. This president had to deal with their mortal enemy, the Shia, Iran. And this is the reason why they no longer trust this president and are willing to work alongside him. But they have as much vested in this as we do, in fact, more so. For it is the king of Saudi Arabia they want to be head first. It's the king of Jordan that they want to dethrone. It's that they want to go into Egypt. That's the way they've already gone into Libya. And another point we need to talk about. Assad is one of the main reasons why ISIS even exists to begin with. Assad is a puppet of Iran. And he has been so brutal towards the Sunnis within Syria that he created the space that led for the people of Syria themselves to stand up and try to overthrow him. That led to the chaos, which allowed ISIS to come in and take advantage of that situation and grow more powerful. And the fact that this president left from behind meant there were no alternative groups on the ground to be empowered, leaving ISIS the prime operating space they needed to become the force they have now become.
Stand by. Mr. Urena. The former Defense Secretary Bob Gates says the chances of getting Sunni Arab forces on the ground to get the job done, his words, chances very remote. What's your strategy?
Well, first I'll just point out that talking tough is not the same as being strong. And to wage war, we need a commander-in-chief who has made tough calls in tough times and stood up to be held accountable over and over, not first-term senators who never made an executive decision in their life. One of the things I would immediately do, in addition to defeating them here at home, is bring back the warrior class, Petraeus, McChrystal, Mattis, Keene, Flynn. Every single one of these generals I know, every one was retired early because they told President Obama things that he didn't want to hear. We must have Sunni Arabs involved in this coalition. We must commit leadership, strength, support, and resolve. I'll just add that Margaret Thatcher once said, if you want something talked about, ask the man. If you want something done, ask the woman.
When you listen to this stuff and you think that so many of these people have had so much to do with this national debate, they talk like they were bystanders. You know, we talk about our military being degraded over time, and yet we've had folks on the stage who've been a part of Congress who have participated in sequester, who participated in the degrading of this military over time. And that's why I think people get so frustrated with Washington, D.C. now. That's why they're so angry with, and that's why I think people get so frustrated with Washington, D.C. now. That's why they're so angry with the elected, so angry with everybody who's involved in government in Washington, D.C. Because if you listen to the folks up here, you would think that they weren't even there. They had nothing to do with this. This is the difference between being a governor and being in a legislature. See, because when someone doesn't work in New Jersey, they look at me. Say, why didn't you get done? Why didn't you do it? You have to be responsible and accountable. And so on ISIS, let's be clear. The president needs to be a force that is trusted in the world. And on this I agree with Martha. You know, this president is not trusted. If you're the king of Jordan, if you're in the royal family of Saudi Arabia, and he's made this deal with Iran, which gives him $150 billion to wage a war to try to extend their empire across the Middle East, why would you want to do it now? But I will say this, when I stand across from King Hussein in Jordan, I say to him, you have a friend again, sir, who will stand with you to fight this fight. He'll change his mind.
Dr. Carson, what's your strategy?
I've been talking about this for over a year. We have to destroy their caliphate. because that gives them legitimacy to go ahead with the global jihad. We have to take their energy, because ISIS is the richest terrorist organization there is, take their oil, shut down all the mechanisms whereby they can disperse money, because they go after disaffected individuals from all over the place, and they are able to pay them. That makes a difference. As far as the command centers are concerned, in Raqqa and to a lesser degree in Mosul, cut those off. Do the same kind of thing that we did with Sinjar a few weeks ago, working with our embedded special forces, with the Kurds, shut off the supply route, soften them up, then we go in with special ops followed by our Air Force to take them over. Those are things that work. But also, this whole concept of boots on the ground, we've got a phobia about boots on the ground. If our military experts say we need boots on the ground, we should put boots on the ground and recognize there will be boots on the ground, and they'll be over here, and they'll be their boots if we don't get them out of there now.
Thank you. Everyone stand by.
A terrorist war zone run by jihadists. Move over to Egypt. Once again, the Obama administration, encouraged by Republicans, toppled Mubarak, who has been a reliable ally of the United States, of Israel, and in its place, Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood came in, a terrorist organization. And we need to learn from history. These same leaders, Obama, Clinton, and far too many Republicans, want to topple Assad. Assad is a bad man. Gaddafi was a bad man. Mubarak had a terrible human rights record, but they were assisting us, at least Gaddafi and Mubarak, in fighting radical Islamic terrorism. If we topple Assad, the result will be ISIS will take over Syria, and it will worsen U.S. national security interests. And the approach, instead of being a Woodrow Wilson democracy promoter, we ought to hunt down our enemies and kill ISIS rather than creating opportunities for ISIS to take control.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. Senator Rubio. Use your point.
Gaddafi was not started by the United States. It was started by the Libyan people. And the reason why I argue we need to get involved is because he was going to go one way or the other. And my argument for them was proven true. And that is, the longer that civil war took, the more militias would be formed, and the more unstable the country would be after the fact. As far as Muammar Gaddafi is concerned, by the way, Muammar Gaddafi is the man that killed those Americans over Lockwood, Scotland. Muammar Gaddafi is also the man that bombed that cafe in Berlin and killed those Marines. And you want to know why Muammar Gaddafi started cooperating on his nuclear program? Because he got rid of Saddam Hussein. And so he got scared that he would be next, and that's why he started cooperating. Look, we will have to work around the world with less than ideal governments. The government in Saudi Arabia is not a democracy, but we will have to work with them. The government in Jordan is not perfect, but we will have to work with them. But anti-American dictators like Assad, who helped Hezbollah, who helped get those IEDs into Iraq, if they go, I will not shed a tear.
Senator Cruz.
Hearing from President Obama and Hillary Clinton and Washington Republicans that they're searching for these mythical moderate rebels. It's like a purple unicorn. They never exist. These moderate rebels end up being jihadists. And I'll tell you whose view on Assad is the same as mine. It's Prime Minister Netanyahu. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said Israel doesn't have a dog in that fight because Assad is a puppet of Iran, a Shia radical Islamic terrorist, but at the same time, Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't want to see Syria governed by ISIS, and we need to focus on American interests, not global aspirations.
Everybody stand by for a moment. We want to prevent Iran being able to extend a Shia crescent all across the Middle East. Assad's got to go, and there are moderates there. There are moderates in Syria who we should be supporting. I do not support a civil war. I don't want to be policemen of the world, but we can't back off of this. And let me tell you, at the end, the Saudis have agreed to put together a coalition inside of Syria to stabilize that country.
In my opinion, we've spent $4 trillion trying to topple various people that frankly, if they were there and if we could have spent that $4 trillion in the United States to fix our roads, our bridges, and all of the other problems, our airports, and all of the other problems we have, we would have been a lot better off. I can tell you that right now. We have done a tremendous disservice, not only to the Middle East, we've done a tremendous disservice to humanity. The people that have been killed, the people that have been wiped away, and for what? It's not like we had victory. It's a mess. The Middle East is totally destabilized, a total and complete mess. I wish we had the $4 trillion or $5 trillion. I wish it was spent right here in the United States on our schools, hospitals, roads, airports, and everything else that are all falling apart.
That's exactly what's a Republican presidential candidate. But let's just start with who got it wrong. Who really got it wrong? Hillary Clinton has gotten every foreign policy challenge wrong. And didn't she reset button with Vladimir Putin? Recall that she called Bashar al-Assad a positive reformer. And then she opened an embassy. And then later she said over and over and over again, Bashar al-Assad must go, although she wasn't prepared to do anything about it. Recall that Hillary Clinton was all for toppling Muammar Gaddafi, then didn't listen to her own people on the ground. And of course, when she lied about the terrorist attack in Benghazi, she invited more terrorist attacks.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Well, there's nothing to respond to. People feel differently. I mean, the fact is Benghazi was a disaster because of Libya. Everything just fell into place. It could not have been worse. What do we have now? We have nothing. We've spent $3 trillion and probably much more. They have no idea what we spent. Thousands and thousands of lives. We have nothing. Wounded warriors all over the place who I love. We have nothing for it. And by the way, and Ben said incorrectly, and I'm not saying this is a knock, this is one of the finest men. You're not going to find a finer man. But I've been talking about oil for 3 years. I've been saying, take the oil, take the oil. I didn't say just buy it. I said take it and use it and distribute it so that the wounded warriors and people. But I've been saying this now for many years. Now all of a sudden everybody's saying take the oil. It wasn't so fashionable to take the oil 6 months ago. I've been saying it for years.
No one is ever better off with dictators, but there comes a time, when you're on an airplane, they always say, in case of an emergency, oxygen mask will drop down, put yours on first, and then administer help to your neighbor. We need oxygen right now. And we need to start thinking about the needs of the American people before we go and try to solve everybody else's problems. The fact of the matter is the Middle East has been in turmoil for thousands of years. For us to think that we're going to go in there and fix that with a couple of little bombs and a few little decorations is relatively foolish.
Lessons learned are that we have to have a strategy to get in and a strategy to get out, which means that you create a stable situation. This president, and this is what the focus ought to be, it's not the differences between us. It's Barack Obama does not believe America's leadership in the world is a force for good. He does not believe that our strength is a place where security can take place. He leads from behind. He creates an environment that now we're creating the most unstable situation we've had since the World War II era. The focus ought to be on the simple fact that Hillary Clinton wants to double down on a failed foreign policy, and we need to be united to defeat that, because we're going to be in a place that's far less secure than it is today.
I don't think because I think the regime change was a bad idea, it means that Hussein was necessarily a good idea. There's often variations of evil on both sides of the war. What we have to decide is whether or not regime change is a good idea. It's what the neoconservatives have wanted. It's what the vast majority of those on the stage want. They still want regime change. They want it in Syria. They wanted it in Iraq. They wanted it in Libya. It has not worked.
Leadership side staying in power, but you're also in favor of winning. If he stays in power, Iran is winning. Hezbollah is winning. Iran is winning in Yemen. They are winning everywhere. If they're winning, how can we be winning?
I think Assad is a bad guy, very bad guy. All right, lots of people killed. I think we're backing people we have no idea who they are. The rebels. We call them the rebels, the patriotic rebels. We have no idea. A lot of people think that they're ISIS. We have to do one thing at a time. We can't be fighting ISIS and fighting Assad. Assad is fighting ISIS. He's fighting ISIS. Russia's fighting now ISIS. And Iran is fighting ISIS. We have to do one thing at a time. We can't go, and I watched Lindsey Graham. He said, I've been here for 10 years fighting. Well, he'll be here with that thinking for another 50 years. He won't be able to solve the problem. We have to get rid of ISIS first. After we get rid of ISIS, we'll start thinking about it. But we can't be fighting Assad. And when you're fighting Assad, you're fighting Russia, you're fighting a lot of different groups. But we can't be fighting everybody at one time.
Formed here. ISIS is created and formed because of the abuse that Assad and his Iranian sponsors have rained down on the Sunnis in Syria. And so when we empower Iran, this is why this president, and when Hillary Clinton says her theory against ISIS will be just about the same as the president, they get ready for more unrest and more murder and more violence.
I think regime change in Syria, I've been saying this for several years now. In 2013, when we first went in, I said, you're going to give arms to the allies of Al-Qaeda, to radical jihadists? That's crazy. But the other thing I said is the great irony is you'll be back fighting against your own weapons. Had Assad been bombed when he used chemical weapons 2 years ago, ISIS would be in charge of all of Syria now. We have to have a more realistic foreign policy and not a utopian one where we say, oh, we're going to spread freedom and democracy and everybody in the Middle East is going to love us. They're not going to love us.
Saddam had not had weapons of mass destruction, I would have gone. Because I don't believe that the U.S. should be involved directly in civil wars. I oppose the U.S. involvement in Lebanon. We ended up having to withdraw our Marines after our barracks were blown up. There's a difference between Iraq, where you have Sunni, Shia, and Kurds put together after the First World War by the Western powers. It doesn't work. It needs to break up into 3 parts. And finally, in regard to Syria, understand that Assad is an ally of Iran who wants to extend that Shia radicalism all.
What I said was, the President of the United States now is not the time to talk with him. Reagan walked away at Reykjavik. There is a time and a place for everything. There is a time and a place for talk, and there is a time and a place for action. I know Vladimir Putin. He respects strength. He lied to our president's face, didn't bother to tell him about warplanes and troops going into Syria. We need to speak to him from a position of strength. So as Commander-in-Chief, I will not speak to him until we've set up that no-fly zone, until we've gathered our Sunni Arab allies and begun to deny ISIS territory, until I called the Supreme Leader of Iran and told him, New Deal. We, the United States of America, are going to cut off the money flow, which we can do, which we don't need anyone's permission or collaboration to do, and I will not speak to him personally until we rebuilt the Sixth Fleet a little bit right under his nose. Responsible for the growth of ISIS because they precipitously withdrew from Iraq in 2011 against the advice of every single general and more political extremist.
I would do it. No-fly zone means no-fly zone. Well, that's what it means. Maybe you got from New Jersey, I just had this kind of plain language hanging. But I would make Richter, I would not talk to Vladimir Putin. In fact, I would talk to Vladimir Putin a lot. I would say, listen, Mr. President, there's no fly zone in Syria. You fly in, it applies to you. And yes, we would shoot down the planes of Russian pilots if, in fact, they were stupid enough to think that this president was the same feckless weakling that the president we have to walk around.
I think if you're in favor of World War III, you have your candidate. You know, usually that's the thing. My goodness, what we want in a leader is someone with judgment, not someone who is so reckless as to stand on the stage and say, yes, I'm jumping up and down, I'm going to shoot down Russian planes. Russia already flies in that airspace. It may not be something we're in love with the fact that they're there, but they were invited by Iraq and by Syria to fly in that airspace. And so if we announce we're going to have a no-fly zone, and others have said this, Hillary Clinton's also for it, it is a recipe for disaster.
What reckless is calling us Donald Trump. What reckless is allowing Russia to come into Crimea and Ukraine. What reckless is inviting Russia into Syria to team with Iran. That is reckless, and the reckless people are the folks in the White House right now. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are the reckless people, and if you think that a no-fly zone is a reckless policy, you're welcome to your opinion. But how's it working so far? As we have 250,000 Syrians murdered, slaughtered, millions running around the world, running for their lives, it's not working. We need to try something else, and that is not reckless.
I know what I don't know. I know what I don't know. I would seek out, as I have, the best advice that exists. I won't get my information from the shows. I don't know if that's Saturday morning or Sunday morning. I don't know which one. I will seek out the best advice, and I will create a strategy, and I will persuade the American people what the role of America should be. I've laid out a policy of rebuilding our military. All of the talk that we're saying here, most of which I agree on, frankly, requires a much stronger military. We now have a lack of readiness that is quite scary. We have planes that Harry Truman inaugurated, the B-52. We have the Navy has been gutted and decimated. The readiness of the Marines is way down. If we're serious about America's leadership in the world, then we need to make sure that we have the back of the armed forces. The Armed Forces Radio is here listening to this today. I hope they know that if I'm president, I'll be a commander-in-chief, not an agitator-in-chief or a divider-in-chief, that I will...
It's very sad that CNN leads Jeb Bush, Governor Bush, down a road by starting off virtually all of the questions. Mr. Trump this, I think it's very sad. And frankly, I think it's very sad. And frankly, I watched the first debate, and the first long number of questions were, Mr. Trump said this, Mr. Trump said that, Mr. Trump. These poor guys, although I must tell you, Santorum, good guy. Governor Huckabee, good guy. They were very nice, and I respect them greatly. But I thought it was very unfair that virtually the entire early portion of the debate was Trump this, Trump that, in order to get Reagan the Trump. I think it's very unprofessional.
But it wasn't said. It was good.
I think it's very unfair.
It's not clear. It's America's watching it.
Okay, fine.
It's America's watching it.
I was thinking so. This is tough, and you're not being treated
This
fairly.
is tough.
Yeah, but it's going to be like dealing with or dealing with the Islamic terrorism.
Oh, yeah.
This is a tough business.
You're a tough guy, Jeff.
And we need to...
Let's see, I'm at 42 and you're at 3. So you started off over here, Jeff. You're moving over further and further. Pretty soon you're going to be off the edge.
It is not the way we're going to strengthen our country. We will strengthen our country when we come together. And look, you've got Rand Paul, you've got Ted Cruz, you've got Mark, you've got a lot of people in
Our country was really designed for the citizen statesman. And we need to be talking about where does your experience come from? You know, and I've had a lot of experience building things, organizing things, a national scholarship program. One of the things that you'll notice if you look through my life is that I don't do a lot of talking. I do a lot of doing. And really, it says more about a person than how much they talk.
Very strong bind and really are bound to this country. We either have a border or we don't. People can come into the country, we welcome people to come in, but they have to come in legally.
Thank you.
Public health issues. We have an epidemic of heroin overdoses in all places in this country because of the need bringing heroin in. We have to secure the border. It is a serious undertaking, and yeah, we do need
An opportunity to talk to the Syrians themselves, and I asked them, what do you want? What is your supreme desire? Their supreme desire was to be settled back in their own country. I said, what can Americans and other countries do? They said, support the efforts of those who are trying to provide safety for us, including the Jordanians. Of course, they had a brand new hospital, for instance, that was unstaffed because there wasn't enough money to do it. But here's what's really
The record straight on this, because I think Marco misspoke about the bill. On the Gang of 8 bill, there was no provisions really for extra scrutiny or safety for refugees. At the time the bill came up, 2 Iraqi refugees came to my hometown, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Their fingerprints were on a bomb from Iraq. They were in the database.
As far as the refugees are concerned, it's not that America doesn't want to accept refugees whole. It's that we may not be able to, because this is an issue we have to be 100% right on. If we allow 9,999 Syrian refugees into the United States, and all of them are good people, but we allow one person into an ISIS killer, we just get one person wrong, we got a serious problem. And there is not a single person who would be only for refugees going forward. So I haven't taken a position on sending anyone home, but I have taken the position that we have a lot of problems here in our country, and that one of the things that we do, charity is about giving your own money. Charity isn't giving someone else's money. To put everyone
President of the United States is to protect your safety and your security and the security and safety of your family. And this debate stops with me in the discussions with the FBI director. Now, listen, I was a federal prosecutor. I know Jim Comey. We've worked together. He was the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, and I was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. And when Jim Comey gets up before Congress and says, we cannot effectively vet these people, for me as president, that's the end of the conversation. And workers, by the way, and we now know from watching the San Bernardino attack that women can commit heinous acts against humanity just the same as men can do it. And so I don't back away from that position for a minute. When the FBI director tells me that he can vet those people, then we'll consider it, and not a moment before, because you're
The Chinese, by the way, the Russians and rogue actors, including ISIS. This is a serious part of the 21st century security challenge that we face. Mr. Trump.
We need somebody absolutely that we can trust, who is totally responsible, who really knows what he or she is doing. That is so powerful and so important. And one of the things that I'm frankly most proud of is that in 2003, 2004, I was totally against going into Iraq because you're going to destabilize the Middle East. I called it very strongly, and it was very important. But we have to be extremely vigilant and extremely careful when it comes to nuclear. Nuclear changes the whole ballgame. Frankly, I would have said, get out of Syria, get out. If we didn't have the power of weaponry today, the power is so massive that we can't just leave areas that 50 years ago or 75 years ago, we wouldn't care. It was hand-to-hand combat. The biggest problem this world has today is not President Obama with global warming, which is inconceivable. This is what he's saying. The biggest problem we have today is nuclear proliferation, and having some maniac, having some madman go out and get a nuclear weapon. That's, in my opinion, that is the single biggest problem that our country faces.
The three legs of the triad that you have a priority, and I want to go to Senator Rubio.
I think to me, nuclear is just the power, the devastation is very important to me.
Senator Rubio, you have a response.
I do. Well, first, let's explain to people home who the triad, what the triad is. Maybe a lot of people haven't heard that terminology before. The triad is our ability in the United States to conduct nuclear attacks using airplanes, using missiles launched from silos or from the ground, and also from our nuclear subs, ability to attack. And it's important, all three of them are critical. It gives us the ability at deterrence. Now, some have become more critical than others, for example, the submarine. And that's the Ohio-class submarine that needs to be modernized. The air component also needs to be modernized. The B-52, as someone earlier pointed out, is an outdated model that was flown by the grandparents of people that are flying it now. And we need a serious modernization program as well on our silo-launched missiles. All three are critical to the defense.
Thank you, Senator Rubio.
Senator Cruz, you have not been willing to attack Mr. Trump in public, but you did question his judgment in having control of America's nuclear arsenal during a private meeting with supporters. Why are you willing to say things about him in private and not in public?
Dana, what I said in private is exactly what I'll say here, which is that the judgment that every voter is making of every one of us up here is who has the experience, who has the vision, who has the judgment to be commander-in-chief. That is the most important decision for the voters to make. That's the standard I'm held to, and it's the standard everyone else is held to. And I will note, in the whole course of this discussion about our foreign policy threats, it actually illustrates the need for clarity of focus. My daughters, Caroline and Catherine, came tonight. They're 7 and 5, and you think about the Los Angeles schools canceling their schools today. And every parent is wondering, how do we keep our kids safe? We need a commander-in-chief who does what Ronald Reagan did with communism, which is he set out a global strategy to defeat Soviet communism, and he directed all of his, I'm answering the question now, he directed all of his forces to defeating communism. communism. One of the things we've seen here is how easy it is for Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton to get distracted from dealing with radical Islamic terrorism. They won't even call it by its name. We need a president who stands up, number one, and says we will defeat ISIS, and number two, says the greatest national security threat facing America is nuclear Iran.
Senator, a lot of people
We need to be focused on defeating radical Islamic terrorism.
but I just want to clarify, what you're saying right now is you do believe Mr. Trump has the judgment to be commander-in-chief.
What I'm saying, Dana, is that is a judgment for every voter to make. What I can tell you is all 9 of the people here would make an infinitely better commander-in-chief than Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. We need to focus on defeating jihadism. ISIS and Iran have declared war on America, and we need a commander-in-chief who will do everything necessary to keep our children safe.
Thank you, Senator.
And I will do everything necessary to keep our children safe.
Thank you, Senator. We're a month and a half away now from the first real test. Who will be the Republican presidential nominee? Hugh, you have a question.
Mr. Trump, my listeners, I'll be honest, I really am. I mean, people have been putting me in the test. I really am. Dr. Carson, I've gained great respect for the Republican leadership. I've gained great respect for many, and I'm going to even say often in different forms, for the people on the day. In different forms. But I have great respect for the people I've met through this process. I've never done this process before. I've never been a politician. I mean, up to the last 6 months, I've been a politician. But I will tell you, I am totally committed to the Republican Party. I feel very honored to be the front runner, and I think I'll do very well if I'm chosen. If I'm so fortunate to be chosen, I think I'll do very well. Polls have come out recently say I would beat Hillary. I will do everything in my power to beat Hillary Clinton.
Last week, that I would leave the party was contingent upon whether, in fact, the party acts like they have in the past with a lot of subterfuge and dishonesty, or like they're going to act now, because I spoke to Reince Cubis and he assured me that the Washington Post writer had it all wrong, and that they're not going to be engaging in anything to thwart the will of the people. That's why I got into this race as a member of We the People to try to bring some honesty and integrity back to the process.
All right, candidates, we have more coming up when we come back.
Whose fault is it? Well, frankly, it's both parties' fault. You have those on the right who clamor and say, oh, we won't spend anything on the military, and those on the left who say the same for domestic welfare. But what most Americans don't realize is there's an unholy alliance. They come together, there's a secret handshake. We spend more money on everything. And we are not a stronger nation if we go further into debt. We are not projecting power from bankruptcy court. To me, there is no greater threat than our debt. I'm the only fiscal conservative on the stage because I'm willing to hold the line on all spending. I hope you'll consider me in the election. Thank you very much.
I've been elected President of the United States without winning Ohio. Let me give you a little tip on how you win Ohio. It's reform, it's hope, it's growth, it's opportunity, and it's security. The people of Ohio are the people of America. The people of America are reflected in Ohio. Our message has to be big and bold and positive and connect, not just with people's heads, but also connect with their hearts. If we do it, we will beat Hillary Clinton, and we will run the White House, and we will strengthen and fix America. I promise you.
And while I was named Chief Federal Prosecutor in New Jersey on September 11, 2001, my wife and my brother were in the audience tonight, went through the World Trade Center to their offices just blocks away from the Trade Center. I lost touch with them for 6 hours that day and praying that they were alive. Luckily, they were sent home. But many of our friends and others in our neighborhood lost their lives that day. Terrorism, radical jihadist terrorism is not theoretical to me. It's real. And for 7 years, I spent my life protecting our country against another one of those attacks. You won't have to worry when I'm President of the United States whether that can be done, because I've already done it. I want the chance to do it again to protect you, your children, and your families. If you give me the chance to give me your vote, I will protect America from the wars that are being brought to our doorstep.
September 11th. I remember immediately putting into place security procedures all throughout our company that did business in 170 countries where we thought corporate interests would be attacked next. To take our country back, to keep our nation safe, we have to begin by beating Hillary Clinton. We need to unify our party. We need to be better than our government, which 75% of the American people now think is corrupt and incompetent. They're right. We need to be better than our politics. 80% think we have a professional political class of both parties that cares more about its power, position, and privilege than actually on getting anything done. We need to unify our party. We need a real conservative in the White House. And we need to beat Hillary Clinton to take our country back and keep our nation safe. I can. I am. And together, if you join me, we will take our country back.
Which candidate will keep you and our country safer, stronger, and freer? Hillary Clinton has aligned herself with Barack Obama on ISIS, Iran, and the economy. It's an alliance doomed to fail. My proven record suggests that, and my detailed plans will fortify our national and economic security. And my proven record as governor will give you a sense that I don't make false promises. I deliver real results. For America to be safe and sound, I ask for your support. Thank you all very much.
We enter one of the most important elections in a generation. For what's at stake in this election is not simply what party is going to be in charge, but our very identity as a people and as a nation. For over 200 years, this has been a special country, a unique place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. But now millions of Americans feel like they're being left behind, insecure in their future and unsafe in the face of terrorism. This election is about electing a president that will restore our economic vibrancy so that the American dream can expand to reach more people and change more lives than ever before, and rebuild our military and our intelligence programs so that we can remain the strongest nation on earth. Tonight I ask you for your vote. If you do this, we will rebuild this country. And together we will usher in a new American century, the greatest era in the history of this great land.
Strength, clarity, and trust. Barack Obama has said he doesn't believe in American leadership or America winning. He is wrong. America can win again, and we will win again. Ronald Reagan reignited the American economy, rebuilt the military, bankrupted the Soviet Union, and defeated Soviet communism. I will do the same thing, cutting taxes, cutting regulation, unleashing small businesses, and rebuilding the military to defeat radical Islamic terrorism. Our strategy is simple. We win, they lose. We've done it before, and we can do it again.
To travel to 58 different countries, and I thank God every day that I was born in this country, the most exceptional country that the world has ever known. And I want to make sure that we preserve that exceptionalism for the next generation. My mother told me if I work hard and I believe in American principles and I believe in God, anything is possible. I believe that is true, and that's why I'm not anxious to give away American values and principles for the sake of political correctness.
Doesn't win anymore. We don't win on trade. We don't win on the military. We can't defeat ISIS. We're not taking care of our great people, the veterans. We're not taking care of them. We have to change our whole way. Our healthcare system is a disaster. It's going to implode in 2017, just like you said in there. It doesn't work. Nothing works in our country. If I'm elected president, we will win again. We will win a lot. And we're going to have a great, great country, greater than ever before. Thank you.